I do believe we are live streaming. I hope so.
Seems
So,
so.
hello and good morning to everyone on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube and wherever you are watching this. Welcome to Talk About TV. I'm your host, Michelle Oliver, and at Talk About TV, we talk about all things experiential outdoor hospitality. And every Wednesday, we come with a very, very special guest. I'm so excited about having Charlie here, and I'll introduce him in just a second. But every Wednesday, we come to you with one thing that you do not know about experiential outdoor hospitality. So today, Charlie Boyne is here as my guest. Welcome, Charlie.
Hey,
And
Michelle, thanks so
Charlie,
much.
yeah, Charlie is our he's our project manager at Evolve Lodging, and he's also our outdoor deck, I don't want to say guy, expert. He's our outdoor deck expert. And today we're going to talk about, guess what? Outdoor decks. Because all of us know that, everybody that goes to stay in an accommodation at an outdoor hospitality venue is there for the outdoors. They don't want to be stuck inside their little 400 square feet or their whatever your accommodations are. And so we're very big, as I'm sure you've heard us talk about at Evolve Lodging, we're very big on creating experiences. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Charlie, tell us, why does a deck matter?
Ah, I feel like I spend way more time hanging out on the deck in a good spot with a good view
Yeah.
if the situation's nice, if the accommodations are nice, than I do inside. I think you've chosen to sit outside where you are right now,
Yeah.
and that's for a specific reason, and that's because I think it's nicer, and that's what this entire industry revolves around, is that fresh air. And so I think that sort of I like to call it the threshold between luxury and nature, or the threshold between shelter and nature. It's sort of that space where you get to be outside of the shelter and you're in the nature, but you're not totally removed from your comforts.
Yes, that's absolutely perfect description. So when we're talking about decks, I don't know. I was on a deck yesterday. I was viewing a property, and the property has so much potential. And I stepped out on the deck, and there was this stunning view, but the deck was only like, I don't know, I don't know how big it was, 3 feet or something. And there was no railing. And I just thought, this is not the ideal deck. So let's talk a little bit about what makes a good deck.
Perfect. I can talk about this all day, and I'm so happy
I
to be
know.
able to talk about it here. I have loved these, and so yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, first and foremost, you have to be able to sit on it comfortably.
Yes.
Like you have to have space to put nice furniture and navigate around that nice furniture. And you can't do that in 3 feet. You can't do that in 4 feet.
No.
I don't think you can do it in 8 feet. I usually start
Well,
with a base of 12 by 12. It's a good solid base. And I think that that's where you start to be able to actually put both comfort and flow for people moving through that as well. So
I
um,
really like that. I'm going to interrupt for a second. Comfort and flow. So
yeah.
tell us more about comfort and flow on a deck. What
Um,
provides the comfort, and how do you manage the flow? And is it like always a square? You know, I have a lot of questions. So let's
yeah.
start with that.
Well, yes, I'll start with the second question. One thing that got me so passionate about decks and outdoor hospitality was so my background is I studied architecture and I went into the construction field from there. And I'm really passionate about construction, and as a builder, construction costs. And so it should always be a rectangular deck. Anytime I see an angular deck or a curved deck or a circular deck, and the worst is when I see a deck that's just the circle of the dome or the yurt or something, and then the dome goes on top it, and then there's a staircase straight down into the mud. So there's no outdoor deck.
Okay,
And
why should it not be circular or angled? Because I've seen a lot of decks where, like the one I was on yesterday, where it will kind of be a rectangle and then it comes out like a, do you know what I mean? Like this, like
Oh
it
yeah,
will,
yeah,
to you, it would be like a point and then straight across.
yeah.
I guess
Um,
it
so
depends
yeah,
on the angle of the structure, I guess.
well, first and
Or
foremost,
not. I don't know. I'm
just
asking.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
am
think that
I am ignorant in the deck, shape.
well, I am obsessed with it, and as
Yes,
a
I know.
builder, as a carpenter, as a framer, as someone estimating costs, I think that there's some beautiful curved decks. I think that there's some beautiful angled decks. I think that you can do some really cool things with the shape of the deck, but ultimately, if you're going to be doing a bunch of these, and if it's not for you to live in forever, if it's for guests, and if it's for the market. I think that the construction process can be way quicker. You can get to opening more quickly. Your estimates are going to be more accurate. You're going to have a happy contractor. And again, I don't think the deck is the show. I'm obsessed with the decks because I think that they're the platform from which we get to enjoy the beauty of nature and the accommodations and each other
Yes.
and all of these other things. And I see so many decks that are built or designed for deck designers or they're designed for other people that want to geek out on decks, but people aren't here to look at the deck. They're not.
That's
They're here.
that is such a great point, Charlie. Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
utility of the deck. So what else makes a good deck? Like, what is the foundational thing? Does it need to be really complex? Is it just very basic? How do you
No.
see that?
So I've based my design system around just following international residential building code. Just following
Okay.
just whatever code is and just not trying to reinvent the wheel. I've tried to reinvent the wheel many times with, modular decks that could click together and I did. I reinvented the wheel, but then I compared it to the regular wheel and it was way more expensive and it was a clunky thing.
Yeah.
It was bad. And so and then sourcing your contractors is easier when you just keep it simple, which is a huge issue that everybody's going to be facing, especially if you're building at scale. So keeping it simple allows for that. And then spatially, what makes a great deck is, well, it depends on the accommodation type you're working with. So if the accommodation has its own structure, I
Mhm.
I designed the decks to sit immediately next to the threshold of that structure, maybe an eighth of an
Okay.
inch off. So that way you're stepping out onto a separate structure, but the guest experience has no idea. Um,
Yeah.
and then that's a lot easier when you're dealing with those because those are usually rectangular structures, park models and tiny houses. So that's a very
Right.
straightforward, how much deck do you want outside? But as for
Yeah.
a lot of these creative soft shell structures like tents, yurts, domes, so many others, um, that's where the spaces get a lot more dynamic and there's a lot more stuff to figure out. And you can try to tuck, yeah, I guess I want to use my screen, pretend my screen is the deck. You could put a circle in the corner and you could sacrifice that bottom corner, or you can tuck it in a little bit. And now you have an interesting space in that area. And now you have like maybe that's where the hot tub goes. Maybe that's a little bit more of a
Right.
private side of the deck. And then the nice dining area with the grill and the ping pong table are in a more open side of the deck. So I think creating the spaces on the deck have as much to do with how you position the deck relative to the accommodation type that you're working with as it
Yeah.
does to do with the construction process and the dimensions that you're choosing. So you can get a lot more out of your dimensions if you position it with more thought.
That makes so much sense. And it's a good thing that you've thought all this through repeatedly. I know you're absolutely obsessed and passionate about this, which is wonderful because so often a developer or an owner, you're doing an expansion or developing a property, you don't really know what to think about. You're thinking about so many things. The last thing you want to do is learn about all the intricacies of a deck. So I have another question for you here. Sorry.
That's
Um,
fine.
so often, what I talk with our clients about is how do we extend the interior to the exterior? How do we extend the experience, right? And like you were saying, it's the threshold. There's also this beautiful blurring of the lines, right? Indoor, outdoor. So, what are some of the ways you can facilitate that with the deck? You had mentioned to me something about elevated points.
Yes, that's great. Well, I think so I like to recommend and always encourage at least at your corners, and then I recommend every 8 feet along your railing line to actually have they're called newel posts, the structural posts, but to have those
Hmm.
extend upwards overhead. Because if you have points overhead, even if they're just floating there in the original design, that's where you can hang lights. That's where you can hang shade
Yeah,
sails. That's where you can that's it's the beginning point of being able to do so much more for creating a sense of more of an enclosure than just sort of an open plane.
you're
And I think
creating the full environment, right? Because I can envision like, the vines, the trellises, the flowers, like all of that stuff, a little bit of privacy, outdoor showers. Like I always like think about, I don't know, I always remember one of the places I stayed in Costa Rica that did that so beautifully. There's nothing like blending the indoor and outdoor, but you can't just do that with like a deck, right?
yeah.
So sorry to
Well,
interrupt you, but
no, no.
yeah.
I think that's what I've loved about outdoor hospitality from the very beginning is I think that there is
Yes.
an inherent blending there. And I think that it can start with, in addition to the deck, you can start with enhancing it, like we said, furniture. I think a lot of outdoor
Yeah.
furniture is not good furniture. But when I can lie down on a nice cushioned couch outside on the deck in the shade, all of a sudden you're really blurring the line between indoor outdoor. Uh,
Exactly.
and I like to say, for a lot of your guests, this might be their most romantic evening of the year. And
It
it is
might, if you're
it might
lucky.
if you're doing it right.
Yeah, if you're doing
um
it right, it could be. Or for your
and
kids, it could be like I mean, we all know it could be whatever memory, whatever your thing is. So go ahead, but let's keep going with the romance. So what happens if you're on a hard bench that neither one of you want to sit on?
it's not great
It's
for
not
cuddling. It's not
conducive
good for
to,
cuddling.
right. That's right.
um and so yeah, I think that really bringing that comfort that we're used to having indoors and bringing it out there. So it starts with the
Yes.
furniture, and then I think
Starts with the
my
furniture.
my favorite blurred line, well, I guess so we can start with the furniture, and then I think overhead stuff, like, shade is great. I live in New Orleans, so I'm like particularly obsessed with shade right now.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know I'm trying
and
to lean back into some shade here.
yeah, I'm also a bald guy. I need it. Speaking for the bald community, shades are very important. And then aside from that, I think when you start getting some rain, some just overhead rain covers outdoors, then you have something that can last, through weather. And then for me, like the creme de la creme, like the maximum luxury, the most blurry line you can possibly cause between an indoor and outdoor experience is a screened-in porch.
I was
And
just going to mention that, and I
yeah.
wanted to do the intro to that. So
Oh,
now
sorry,
you
sorry.
took it
Well,
from. No, I was just thinking. I am going to make this point. Is there are some things about nature that we don't want to blend with, and that is bugs.
yes,
So
yes.
yes. So how do you? And anyone who's ever experienced having too much intimacy with a bunch of bugs, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So
and it doesn't
do
take
do
much to get to.
tell, save us. How do you do the
Um,
screened in porch? And what does that have to do with the idea of patios? Can you blend those two? Because you had
yeah,
mentioned the word patios.
I,
I
th I
just
think
had some notes from our earlier conversation.
yeah, no, I think so yeah, screen-in porches, once you screen it in, I guess you could. I actually have done designs for a screen-in porch with sort of permeable shade roof on top just to keep budgets down. But really, you can't do that if you have snow. And at least it's not going to be realistic. So ultimately, you will need a structured roof to the nth degree, a
Mm.
structured roof ready for snow loads with the screened-in walls below. And then, of course, there's some really fun games that we can play with the doors of the accommodations and the doors to the screened-in porch. And then but adding a door that goes down to, and I do love a good landing pad, a good patio. I think it's great for parking. First of all, you do need a flat spot right there. And so enhancing that can go a long way. Great spot for fire pits if you have like an open fire sort of thing. So there can be patios, but what I love so much more about the decks over a patio is that you know, debris collects on patios, patios collect puddles, critters aimlessly walk onto patios almost accidentally, far more often than they do to a deck where they'll just crawl under. You can think about, a snake probably isn't going to come up on your deck. I mean, I'm sure, I guess I don't live in a place with a whole lot of snakes, but
They don't typically go up the stairs.
unless
They're
they're
going to
going
go
for
like,
it, unless they're like
yeah,
trying to get there, but they're not like accidentally coming through up
right.
there. So yeah, so the
And
gaps in the deck boards are that actually act as a screen. So there's far less maintenance
hmm,
for cleaning, and again, it doesn't collect puddles. And also on a psychological level, I've seen a lot of designs, and I've talked to a lot of people who have been debating between patios and decks, and I do think that you can sort of ask yourself when you're on a deck versus a patio, it's a literally elevated experience, but it's a better experience. I think psychologically we like being up off the ground. I think if I dropped I don't know, I guess if I dropped like a French fry on a deck or on a patio, I'm gonna have a different sense of, do I still want to eat that French fry? um,
are you? Are you though?
well, it depends on the type of decking you
Sorry, I'm
get.
joking with you. One thing that I noticed yesterday when I was touring this property, and I actually just wrote an article about this because from the time you get to a property, if you're really thinking about your guest journey, they get out of the car and that's your moment. It's like when you're meeting someone for the first time, if you're dating or something, you look up, you're meeting at a coffee shop, that's like your moment. You take in information about that individual, good or bad, whether that's superficial or not, that's happening at the property. And what I noticed at this place I looked yesterday, I love that they had ample parking because I didn't have to fight for that. But when I got out of my car, the first thought was confusion. Like, where is the entrance? And so what you can do with all design, but with the deck in particular, like attached or around surrounding your accommodation, it tells you where to travel. Like it creates the path of the story for you. So I thought of you yesterday because I got out and then I thought, you know what they need? They need a little path that leads from the parking lot to a deck that then leads you to the door that then, like, you have to create a
Yeah.
a story of this is your journey, guest. Come and walk in it. And yet what we see so often, and you mentioned this earlier, is accommodation, steps going down. Maybe it's a tiny little thing. I don't know if
Picnic
you'd even
table.
call it a
Like
deck. No, I mean like a
oh,
landing,
yeah,
a
yeah,
little
a
tiny
landing.
landing, the
Yeah,
stairs, and then mud, sand, gravel, whatever nature provided.
yeah, yeah.
And then, yeah, and then there's probably some little picnic table there. And why do that when it's so simple to create an experience where your guests are going to stay longer, have better experiences, create memories, the whole package that we want them to do. So, and it's so simple, and it's not like, is this going to break the bank for anybody, Charlie?
I say quite the opposite. I think that if the more experience that your guest has in the outdoor space, the less your indoor space needs to be the star of the show and pull all of the weight. And so I think that when you enhance the guest experience with these sorts of spaces, your indoor space doesn't need to be as much. You still need, an excellent sleeping space, an excellent bathroom space, and an excellent kitchen space. But you don't
Yes.
need 3 lounges. You don't need all of these other spaces because now some activities are happening outside. Now you've got an outdoor kitchen. Maybe now your kitchen, depending on your seasonality, your kitchen might have to carry less weight in the good seasons.
Yes,
Your
exactly. What
lounge doesn't
else?
have to be as ample and open because you've got it outside.
Right. So what else would you put out there? What could you, let's just paint a little picture as we kind of come to the end of this. What would you do on a deck in your imagination? The ultimate experience. Choose an environment.
I think number one, as we said, good sitting space, couch, couple chairs, a table. On top of that, I love grilling. I think a lot of people are excited to when they get outdoors to be throwing something on the grill. So I think some good
Yeah.
outdoor kitchens go a long way. And aside from that, I think ping pong tables are a lot of fun. Hot tubs are, of course, I can't believe I forgot hot tubs.
Forget
Hot tub.
pickleball. Forget pickleball. Have a ping pong. I actually love that idea. If the deck is big enough, that would be such a great way for the kids to burn energy if it's too hot or too cold. Or that's
If
very
you're gonna
interesting. I
do,
never thought of that.
I can't mention kitchen tables without mentioning what you have to do for your railings, with or without or ping pong tables, without mentioning what you have to do for your railings, whether or not you get a ping pong table. I always encourage, it's called welded wire, and it's
Hmm.
gauged wire that crosses vertically and horizontally. You can get at different opening dimensions, but it's the best railing material because it can span between newel posts with minimal visual blocks that are the balusters. So you sort of still maintain that view in a lot of ways. And then it also, when paper plates or cups or napkins go flying, because you're out there having hot dogs, it actually acts as an air filter. So it protects your property from litter that happens on the deck. It sort of creates, it is a barrier between the nature and the guests
Yeah.
in that sense. And if you have a ping pong table, make sure that the gauge is fine enough that the ball gets caught by your railing
Right.
system. Because
Yeah.
otherwise you'll have people running down the
The
mountainside
other,
chasing.
yeah, you can do, I mean, you can be as basic or as elaborate as you want on these deck plays. And I've seen decks where there is the outdoor kitchen, you can have the outdoor fireplaces, all different kinds of outdoor. It doesn't have to be just the table that is so common. You can have hanging, you can do all
Right, of
kinds of
course.
things.
Little fire
You can have
pits.
herb gardens. Yeah. I mean, I went to a place where the outdoor kitchen was extraordinary, and there were literally, it was like a whole vegetable garden growing on the wall that, I mean, like tomatoes coming like the little on vines. And I mean, you can get as luxurious and extravagant as you like, of course, or keep it really simple. It depends on your brand and what you want to do and all that stuff. But it is creating an experience. And was there anything else you wanted to add to what you could put on the deck?
I'd love to expand it. You just mentioned an herb garden, but I would say any kind of garden. I think that bringing plants onto the deck and even into the accommodations, it's something you see pretty rarely because we're dealing with pretty small footprints. But bringing plants into the guest experience up front and center, I think really blurs that line between indoor and
Yeah.
outdoor in a massive way. And so I think that,
Yeah.
yeah, I think plants are great fillers. If you do choose to put your dome or your yurt in the corner, you can put a
Stop
little.
talking about dinosaurs. Oh my gosh. Okay, go
No, when
ahead.
you do have
Yeah.
awkward corners, when you do have awkward little spaces, plants I think are a really great thing to bring into the space, to round things out and to blur that line.
Yeah, biophilia, everyone. That's the trending term right now. Wonderful, Charlie. Well, this has been so much fun and so informative. I hope for everyone and anyone who's watching this. So, anybody who sees this, please share with us, what did you learn? Was there something you didn't know about the outdoor decking and the outdoor experience attached to your deck? I mean, attached to your accommodation as a deck. Is there anything that you didn't know that you learned today? Or did we miss something? Is there something that you have experienced somewhere that really made a difference and left an impression on you that you want to share? Please share in the comments. And we will be
Please.
back again next Wednesday. Actually, I'll see everyone on Friday. I'll be here on Friday for hospitality time, because
Right.
the
Can't wait for that.
experience of hospitality transforms the world. And that's what everyone's going to go out and do today. You had a closing comment, Charlie?
Um, yeah,
Char-
focus on the outdoors. That's why people are here. Don't let that
yeah.
be something that you ignore in your planning phase, in your budgeting phase, in any of that. And it goes even just a little goes a long way compared to a camping a folding chair in the dirt. So
Oh my gosh.
let's be better than that.
Let's be better than that. Yeah. Get outside, everybody. Have a beautiful day. We're right in the middle, in the heart of summer, and your guests want to have that experience to remember. Okay. Everyone have a beautiful day. Thank you so much.